Hello, hello. I'm excited to share something that is just a passion topic of mine today in today's episode, and it's all about fear. It's all about overcoming fear. And I really want to break this down because I think some of us think about fear as this thing we have to avoid or this thing we are powerless to overcome, when reality, there are reasons that we might experience fear. And I want to talk a little bit about what anchors fear in, because we all experience it, but it's a matter of how we process it. Our own self-awareness of why it's become entrenched in us, that really does allow us to break free and move forward. So today I'm actually going to be sharing with you how to identify the lies that we believe because of fear, how that manifests in our lives, and what we can do about it. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrea Jones. I am a registered nurse, functional hormone coach, and inner healing and deliverance pastor. I love getting to walk people through healing in their mind, and really bring that whole person breakthrough that is needed. So, fear is something for me that was such a huge part of my life that I truly didn't know that I could be free from it. And I didn't know how I would function without it. Like it was almost like it had its own persona, its own like huge role in my life, right? And that was for a lot of reasons. For me, that really had a lot to do with really not having a super safe home environment, having a very emotionally unstable parent, and not having the coping skills that I needed to outgrow those emotions and outgrow those fears. God really did wire us to heal. He wired us to heal, and he wired us to be able to, when we experience fear, to be comforted. That's why, when a child is scared in a healthy parent-child relationship, that child will seek out comfort from the parent until they can self-soothe. And for those of us that didn't experience that, or maybe we didn't experience protection at a specific time in our life, that really does lead to this, open door of fear, essentially. And so what I have found in, the last 9 or so years doing inner healing and deliverance ministry, as well as looking back on my own journey, I realized that those really, really, really sticky fears that just would not let go, like no matter how much you work at them, no matter how much you pray, no matter how much you intercede, no matter what you do, that fear will not leave. It really comes down primarily to the lies that we believe and agree with because of that fear. So, for example, if you are a young child and you are not comforted and you're really scared, let's say your parents are arguing and they're fighting about finances, and in your little kid brain, you become really scared, right? Because mom and dad don't normally yell at each other. And now all of a sudden, my environment is kind of thrown upside down. What am I supposed to do with this, right? Well, the truth is that in that moment, what you needed was to be comforted. But the lie that you believed and agreed with because that comfort was not available to you actually is what opened the door to that emotional and spiritual stronghold. And so usually when we are kind of unpacking this with people, we are looking at the spiritual elements. We're also looking at the physical, the physiologic aspect of the human body. And we are also looking at the emotional element of it. It does require addressing all three, really, in order to break free of that stronghold of fear. But I want to talk specifically today about the lies that we believe, because most of us are not aware. We spend our whole life like we have a fly swatter, right? And we're just swatting all of these things away, like trying to avoid the fear, when really the fear is a manifestation of something that's happening deeper deeper under the surface. And that again is wounds and lies. Okay, so we talk about this in the inner healing and deliverance course. We talk about this in the keys to emotional freedom course. But the wounds give room for the lies, right? So the wound may be in that, using the analogy I was using before, is that mom and dad were fighting. I am not safe. I'm just going to use one of my own memories, for example. I remember very distinctly being maybe 3 or 4 years old, and I was sitting on the washing machine. Um, and I don't know why I was out in the garage. I think I must have gone out there to play with my sister or something. I was sitting on top of the washing machine that was in the garage. I could hear my parents arguing. And then my mom storms through the garage and yells at my dad, "I want a divorce." Now, as a 3-year-old, I don't think I knew what that word meant. I don't think I knew that it was bad. I just knew that she was very, very angry at my dad. I heard him slam the door and then I heard him leave. So I believed in that moment that my dad was not coming back. And knowing my mom's emotional dysregulation issues, I thought for sure this is the time. Like this is it. It's all going to hell in a handbasket. And I am here by myself. And I don't know how to self-regulate because I've never experienced anything like this before. It was very scary. And the lie that I believed that the Holy Spirit showed me like 26 years later was that I was not protected and I wasn't safe. And I was left there all alone to deal with my emotions. That was the fear and the lie that came in. And so that fear was now anchored in because of the lie. And I go through life just trying to manage that fear because I haven't actually dealt with the lie. So in that moment, I had to not only acknowledge the fear, but actually forgive my parents for not comforting me and for not coming back to protect me and like, hey, that was just a really bad mommy moment. And it didn't really mean what I said. Let's talk about it and give some room for like emotional process. There was none of that. And granted, I don't think our parents were really taught how to do that either. So I don't blame them for it. But really I had to deal with that root lie, which was that I was not protected and I was alone. And so that lie, again, it came with me everywhere I went. And so anytime I felt that like abandonment trigger or fear of emotional separation, it would come back to that core lie. And so this is why it's really, really, really important if you are struggling with fear or you're struggling with anxiety, to not just look at the fear is like this surface level thing. And we have to begin to peel back the layers and get to the deeper parts of it, which is why is this fear here in the first place? Is there somebody that I need to forgive? Is there some emotional process I need to engage in so that I can release those emotions and come into some sense of safety? We really do have to do that inner work. And there are times, I'm sure I've shared this on podcasts before, there are times where God has instantly delivered me from an anxiety. And there are other times where he's had to give me the tools to work through it and process through it. And that was one of the ones that I really did have to process through that because it was also manifesting in different areas of my life. So if you're listening to this and you are recognizing that fear is an issue, that you have fear, in multiple areas of your life. And maybe it's showing up. This is a common one that I hear. Every time my husband goes out of town, I have horrible nightmares, anxiety. I, have these horrible images of like him driving off a bridge on his way to work. You name it, right? It's a problem. And that almost always, every single session, it goes back to there was some area where there was a lack of protection, a lack of covering, and it opened the door to anxiety and fear. So we can certainly medicate that with wine or medication or any number of things. But if it is still coming up in your day-to-day life and you're not getting that breakthrough, then there's usually a deeper root to it that we need to address. And with that, I want to talk about how the spiritual aspect of this plays into it, right? So we have a very natural situation, which is, let's say, as a child, you're not comforted. Maybe you're left alone in the dark, and that left you open to your own imaginations, right? And those own imaginations as a child, we think maybe there's a monster in the closet or what have you. We saw a scary show. And then the enemy introduces a lie because he is the father of lies. And so nothing good comes from him. And we're introduced to a lie, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, yeah, that is the lie. My dad doesn't really love me, or I'm not really protected. And we carry that lie with us. And now there is a stronghold that is being enforced by the demonic realm because we have agreed with the lies. Now, there is a verse in Matthew, I don't have it right in front of me, that talks about, the enemy is a deceiver. He is a father of all lies. Nothing good comes from him. That means if the fruit of your life, there's fruit in your life that you are seeing that you do not like and you do not agree with it, and you're like, gosh, I just would give anything not to be suffering with this anymore. Then we have to look at the roots, right? We got to look at what's going on under the surface that is allowing for those things to be there. So if you are struggling with fear or anxiety, and you want breakthrough, then I want to invite you to our Overcoming Fear and Anxiety workshop. It's going to be January 22nd at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can find the link in the show notes. If you just click on the app that you're listening to, the link is in the notes. I would love for you to register. It's going to be a powerful time of teaching where I'm actually going to teach you biblically based principles on how to overcome fear. But I'm also going to be talking about the physical, emotional, and spiritual root systems, because there are really three main areas that fear comes into our life. It can be a physical issue for many reasons. It can be an emotional issue for many reasons, and it can be a spiritual issue for many reasons. So I want you to come. Now is the time for your healing. Now is the time for breakthrough. You can go ahead and click the link and register, and we would love to have you there.